That's right. Joining us right now from Capitol Hill is Chris Coons. He's a U.S. Senator. He's a Democrat from the great state of Delaware. He's also a member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Senator, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning to you. Congratulations, Ainsley. That was a big win for Clemson and all South Carolinians last night.
Right. I know. Tell Tim Scott. Give him a big hug when you see him.
Yeah, we thought a lot of senators would be calling in sick to their appearance today because they watched the games late last night.
Lindsey Graham?
Yeah,
that was a late game and a big game.
Sure. Yeah. Well, Jeff Sessions also hopes to be victorious in getting the confirmation. What's your main concern about him?
Well, I know Senator Sessions well. We've served together over 6 years, and we managed to partner together on 2 different bills. So I've been able to work with him on issues that matter to both of us. My main concerns, as I've dug into his record in researching for today's long hearing, is some of his previous statements, actions, and positions on issues that were broadly bipartisan. I'll give you one example. There's a criminal justice reform effort being championed by conservative Republicans and liberal Democrats. Senators like John Cornyn and Tom Tillis and Mike Lee have joined with a number of Democrats to move a bill forward that would address some of the over-incarceration in the United States. And that's something Senator Sessions has staunchly and fervently opposed. So I'll have some questions for him today in the hearing about his views on prison treatment, prison conditions, incarceration, and how we should move forward in criminal justice matters in the United States.
And you're on the Judiciary Committee, and as a Democrat, people listening on the radio, so you'll have some brisk questions. There should be some direct questions. Now, we know that was built off the Clinton crime bill, so the sense in the 90s isn't maybe the sense in 2016. So you're open to his answers, not making conclusions about his record. Let me ask you, this is Jeff Sessions, can have any concerns for Senator Coons when it comes to race?
I have concerns about the impact of legislation that he's opposed or that he's sponsored, and I have some concerns about his record. I do think that we're going to examine in great detail today and tomorrow. We have 3 different panels of witnesses, things that happened a long time ago and things that happened more recently. And I'm frankly going to focus on issues that may not be brought up by some other folks. I mentioned the prison conditions and prison reform issues. I've also got some concerns about things he did around free speech, around torture, and some of his positions on the role of the Attorney General, both when he was State Attorney General in Alabama and the role he would take if confirmed to Attorney General.
Sure.
I'm also on foreign relations, and we have a confirmation hearing tomorrow for Rex Tillerson. So it's going to be a very busy week for several of us who have multiple committees.
Right. But just to be clear, though, and those are all great questions you have, but you've known Senator Sessions for a while. Is he a racist?
You know, it's hard to know what's in someone's heart.
But Jeff Sessions,
Sessions.
Have you ever seen evidence to suggest that he... No. Okay.
And to be clear, my concern is I haven't seen or heard anything from him directly in 6 years. In fact, he's been amiable, a good friend to chat with about football and family in the gym. What I'm concerned about is the impact of the policies and positions, the legislation he's either blocked or advanced, and that's what I'm going to focus on in my questions for him in the hearing.
What are you going to focus on when you have to question Rex Tillerson?
Well, I had a very constructive hour-and-a-half-long private meeting with Mr. Tillerson last week. My principal concern was his views of Vladimir Putin and Russia, Russia's aggression in the Ukraine, and Russia's aggression in Syria, their involvement in the massacre of innocents in Aleppo. And I was encouraged by his responses on sanctions, on the importance of NATO, on the importance of defending our Baltic allies, and the importance of holding Russia accountable for its actions. As I said to him at the end of our conversation, the challenge now is that there is some real gap between what I heard from him and what we heard from President-elect Trump on the campaign trail. And I do think we're going to have a full hearing with Mr. Tillerson. I'll explore some of those issues more thoroughly with him.
Senator Coons, when it comes to Rex Tillerson, amongst people that are questioning him is even Senator John McCain. So there's some Republicans that might not be on board. Have you had a chance to talk to the others on the committee about their concerns? Are they similar to yours? Because Rex Tillerson got endorsements from some pretty spectacular people, Condoleezza Rice, as well as Bob Gates. So when you talk around to people in your panel, do you think he's going to have a tough time?
I think he's going to face a lot of tough questions. I know Senator Rubio, Senator McCain, Senator Paul, other Republicans have some direct questions for him about his views on foreign policy. Yes, he is being supported and endorsed by a number of very senior, significant figures in previous Republican administrations. The challenge here is that we don't really have as well-defined a view of President-elect Trump's policies with regard to Russia as we'd like. And given ongoing issues about Russia's aggression against democracy in Western Europe and the United States, I'd like to see us come out of this hearing with a unified position on how we're going to face Russia. There is a bill being introduced, a bipartisan bill, to strengthen sanctions against Russia for their engagement in a cyber attack on the United States and our democracy. And I'm hopeful that Mr. Tillerson shows the kind of clear-eyed view of Vladimir Putin in his hearing that I heard from him when we met last week.
All right. Well, you're going to be very busy this week, Senator
Yes.
Chris Coons. We thank you very much for joining us live today from the Russell Rotunda. Thank you,
Thanks,
sir.
Senator.
Thank you.